time. My name is Adora Ipamesi. I'm the founder of Kendo Consulting, an HR consultancy which focuses on learning and development solutions. Stay Trendy is an initiative we started last year. We host these sessions every month, and the focus is on a trending topic in the HR space. So today it's going to be an open discussion. If you've been for any of the previous discussions, you know that we talk about trending issues. We have two guests who obviously will be giving us their perspectives on the topic that we will be discussing today. I just want to be sure that I haven't seen the second panelist here. So it will be Fatima, can you tell me, what if there's—
She'll be joining us shortly.
Okay. Okay, good. Right. So Samuel, thank you so much. I think I'll just take off your mic and we can begin. Thank you very much. So good to speak with you, Samuel, and thank you so much for joining us for this particular topic, right? So just to reiterate the topic, like any other topic that we have held in the past coming months or in the previous months, and this topic today is redefining work-life integration in a hybrid workplace. And the questions, we want to just get perspectives. We want it to be very interactive. We're hoping that the audience will chip in. Feel free to use the Q&A, ask questions about, whatever questions you have around work life. And then I'll just probably give a brief synopsis about the way the conversation is going to go. And, we can just have, a discussion basically around it. If there's any perspectives, points of views, maybe you can tell us about what's going on in your organization, and we can just take it from there. So it's really fluid. It's not structured. We don't have any slides today because I think that's something we usually do. But I know that Samuel is loaded, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you today. And when Ifoma comes around as well, I'm sure we will get a lot. So I'll just give a brief synopsis, and then I'm hoping that we can just kick off the session. So let's look at the topic. I think that's obviously a good place to start without even okay. So we're talking about redefining work-life integration, for hybrid workplaces. What exactly, what exactly are we talking about here? And I think like from my perspective, obviously just looking into the topic, we have, since the pandemic hits, a lot of us have, well, it depends on your organization anyway, but quite a number of organizations at least have embraced a hybrid. Some organizations obviously are working remotely full-time, but I think for majority of the organizations, even organizations that are largely in person because of maybe the work they do, like manufacturing firms or firms, that have to be in place in person. I think even them, for their maybe the administrative or support workers, they're adopting would I call it hybrid? I think hybrid seems to be like the middle ground. So like everyone just seems to be like, okay, we're going to do hybrid. I don't know whether it's a bandwagon effect. But one of the things that I know has one of the, would I say, outcomes or the results of remote work generally, and remote work here, I'm just saying hybrid is a form of remote work because you do work remotely sometimes, is that people tend to work like round the clock. And some of the issues that have come up are around well-being and work-life balance. I know like initially people were really excited to work, like, oh, I'm working remotely. And in fact, I know some firms, especially some client firms, that did very well, like 2020 results, 2021. They did fantastically well despite the pandemic. And what came out was that people were working longer hours. So I think now 2023, we started seeing some of the, would I say, implications of that kind of working. And you're hearing more about well-being issues, you're hearing more about burnout, you're hearing more about, always on, people not switching off at all. And so like, we want the discussion to go around, like maybe what are your thoughts around this type of working? What do you understand as work-life integration, first of all? So I'm going to start with Samuel, and then, Ifoma, welcome to you. Ifoma, thank you. You're here just on time. So
my
Samuel,
apologies, I'm having technological issues.
Don't worry.
So.
There's something a friend of mine told me. There was a conference we had a couple of years ago, and everything was like going. She says it's always the FPZ that goes wrong.
I know, right? I know.
It's always the
Thank you for having me.
Even like this afternoon, like, I mean, just before we started this session, like my lights would not come up. I just like, why? Like, it had to be the fizzy. Samuel, I love your sporty look. You're looking great.
Thank you.
So I'm over to you. So the first question I have is, I mean, really around, maybe not really a question, but just so that we're all on the same page, because sometimes people even hear us use the term work-life integration. I mean, people are more, I think we're more familiar with work-life balance. Maybe you can even just help us like with, what do you think work-life integration is, and maybe what are your general thoughts around the topic? Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, first of all, for having me. I'm definitely excited to be sharing on this session. And it's an interesting conversation, one I'm very passionate about, to be very sincere, because just away from, bringing intelligence into the workplace, one of the greatest enablers for organizational growth are the people. And, the way with which people feel connected to the organization, and also how well they are enabled, will greatly affect their productivity, and every other thing, their life choices as well. So it's an interesting conversation, I must say. But my first experience with work-life balance and work-life integration was in 2019. I would say I was very fortunate to be working with one of the best places to work in Nigeria back then, which is, and I would say this openly, Sterling Bank.
Yes. Feel free.
When I was working with Sterling Bank, myself and one of my colleagues got on the team at about the same time, and I'm a guy, she's female, and at that point we were both not married, and she got married along the line. And when she got married, a few changes along the line, she had more home responsibilities, especially when a kid came in. And we are just it was pre-COVID. We didn't even know COVID was coming or anything. So this was, there were conversations around, okay, how do you want, and a flexi work conversation was already coming into place then in the bank. I would just say, you know what, if you're interested in it, let's pilot with, and she signed up for that flexi program back then. And what that meant for her was she could choose the time she was working, because she had to drop her kid at work, in school in the morning. So the regular resumption time in the bank then was 8 a.m. She had to resume 10 a.m. And, the gap of that time, she could spread it across the week. So she could work 1 extra hours in the afternoon. So instead of working 2 extra hours, she could spread it across the week, thereabout as well. And that's where I'm saying work-life integration. Work-life balance will tell you, yes, you have your weekend to do your family things. You have before 8 a.m. to do your family things. But work-life integration is telling us that work is just an aspect of our lives, and there's no need for us to fix ourselves into, how work should be and how life should be. So my key distinctions when it comes to work-life balance and work, and I think work-life balance is pretty outdated. That word has been existing for over 30 years. So I think organizations should move in the line of work-life integration, where work-life balance focuses on, it's just like when we say balance, when we say balance, it means there are two ends to it. It means it is a 50-50. It means we are trying to find the middle ground. So if we are saying that work should be 50% of our existence and life should be 50% of our existence, it is unfair, even to us as human beings, because work is just one aspect. We have family, we have finance, we have our physical health, we have our emotional health, we have recreation. So it is unfair to even us. Our organizations cannot get the best of us if they are putting us to one corner. That's just what I'm saying. So it is that shift from surviving, because I think work-life balance encourages a lot of surviving, to thriving, where our well-being is prioritized, how our life choices, how the stages we are in life fits into work and how work fits into it is prioritized instead of this is how it is and this is how it should go. So those are like my key distinctions around work-life balance. And a person in their 20s that all they do weekends are social activities, go for the cookathon that just happened, for example, attend events like that. You can't compare their priorities to a person that has families to attend to over the weekend, have to prepare for their family during the weekend, they have to work. The priorities are different. So it is organizations understanding this distinction between individuals in the workplace and helping them make life choices. So it is going from that work-life balance of control to choices. I think that's just the key distinction for me when it comes to work-life. So there is no outright definition I'll put out there, but it is ensuring there's a synergy between work into our life, understanding that it is just an aspect and it should not be a 50-50 where we have to weigh which one to prioritize.
That's a very interesting perspective. I never actually thought about it like that, but I mean, I could see the, like, if we just, that's, in fact, let me hear what Ifeoma has to say, because, like, it's about, you're saying like the balancing obviously means you have things to balance, and then balancing will be more structured in the sense that work is at 9 to 5, right? And then after 9 to 5 is maybe time with your family. But what I'm hearing you're saying with work-life integration is like, we don't need those boundaries per se, because it's just, like we just need to focus on integrating life, work as part of life and just basically flowing. Am I getting that? Or like, it's not about, it's not as distinct in terms of, balancing or having like fixed times for like work. Am I getting your perspective right, or is it different?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yes, definitely.
Okay, good. So Ifeoma, so what are your thoughts on work-life integration as opposed to work-life balance? And do you have any preferences, or what do you practice maybe?
Okay. Thank you, Adora. Finally sorted out my issues.
Okay.
So, same perspective with Samuel. Work-life integration simply now says that there's a fluid approach to how work and play happens. So there really isn't a clear distinction like you have with the work-life balance, because work-life balance says that after work, you shut down 5 o'clock and you have nothing to do with work post that.
Yeah.
But with work-life integration, what you find is that people, there's a fluidity that happens between people working and people living their normal lives.
Okay.
And largely, I mean, obviously, and I think this happened post-COVID, where you now have mental, health awareness, and people now have realized that they require more time to be with family and all of that. So you now find that people are willing to give. I mean, in some cases, people are even willing to lose jobs, that do not afford them the opportunity to, to be wholesome individuals at home. So what you find now is that, I mean, the hybrid work pattern now actually has work-life integration already infused in it, because in very rare cases, it's in very rare cases that you actually find people that are, strict on 9 to 5, I'm working, I'm not going to do anything else beyond work. Mm-hmm. What you have now really is work-life integration in, the hybrid work patterns that we see these days.
Mm. Okay, so let's, I think the next question I'll have is, so what would you say are the challenges? Let's now look at the challenges, because I mean, I hear you, I hear the work-life integration, and I think there are challenges even implementing it, because I mean, I could imagine if people, for example, were doing other things during the work time, for a particular type of job, for like maybe they went to pick up their child between maybe 1 and maybe 2:30, maybe not even 2, depends on where the child lives, and they were back at 2:30, and they stopped at the supermarket. I mean, they're prepared to work at night, but let's say they took about, 3 hours out in the day. I mean, would that be, I mean, I know for sure that wouldn't be, would I say, that wouldn't work for every organization. Because I hear people say, don't look at people's, let them just deliver the work. Now that can't work if you're in customer service, for example, and your clients are, like you have to be on 9 to 5. So how do you work life in that? So I want to look at the challenges and maybe, like what would you say are the biggest challenges that hybrid workers face with regards to this work-life integration? I hear you, does it always work?
Not really. Not really. Something has to give, and like you said, it really depends on the organization, how firm they are, how structured in some cases. So it really depends on the organization and how much they're willing to give away. But to the question on what are the challenges, what is the major challenge I would answer is, I would say burnout. Burnout. Because I mean, if you're giving so much time off your personal time, off your work time during the day, it means you have to make it up at some point. And guess what? If you have deliverables, it means that at some point you would have to, churn in those deliverables. So what you would find is, a young mom who, feels okay, I can do my school runs, I can, go shopping and all of that, and still come back to get work done. What happens is that she probably would have to work late into the night, to send in deliverables, ahead of the following day. So you have burnout. So I'll say one big challenge is most likely the burnout that will happen, and in some cases, even the guilt. Even the guilt that comes with, gosh, I'm not supposed to be doing this. Okay, but clearly I have to put family ahead of work, So it's really I'll say the next question for me, if I were to be on, the receiving end, would be how easily is it to balance the fine line between both ends, because work has to be delivered, but my family commitments are as important.
It sounded like a double-edged sword now.
It is a double-edged sword.
Because I would have thought, we would have been happy that we can work from home. But you see, that's a very interesting point, because yes, a lot of moms can work from home, right? But you still find out that being a mom is a job.
Full time.
So if you were in the office and it was 9 to 5, you would have known that you finished the office work and you're coming home. But if you stay at home, you're still doing all the work in the house still, and then when the kids come home, you continue. And then when they go to bed, you go to bed,
you continue. And then by the time you wake up in the morning, you have eye bags.
You're tired.
Because you probably have had 2 hours of sleep. So, it's really striking that balance, but it's a difficult one, but what I find is that, if you're disciplined with your time, then it becomes easier to handle. I mean, Samuel spoke about, his former organization running a hybrid pattern, and it was great for a lot of people, but then again, you would also find that, especially in Nigeria, in Lagos, for example, it's even more difficult to attain, because you probably would say to yourself, oh, I need to dash out to the supermarket, for 30 minutes, just in time to be back for my meeting at 2 o'clock. Alas, you would end up being in traffic for the next 3 hours, so the pressure that comes with that.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Samuel the next question now. First of all, I ask you if, Samuel, do you agree, or do you think there's any other challenge? What are the challenges? What do you think are the biggest challenges of this hybrid work-life integration thing? And how do you manage it, basically? So if you agree with this burnout, or if there's other issues, what do you think are the challenges? And then can you talk about how we can manage these?
Yeah, there are several challenges, I must confess, and I experienced a number of them firsthand.
Okay.
I remember, and burnout is like top of it, to be very fair, especially during and post-COVID. Burnout was top of it because there were a lot of misconceptions as well around, you are no longer commuting to work, you have more time to do work. So that
Exactly.
expectation is also set.
Yeah.
Another challenge, that a lot of even employees and organizations experience concurrently is connectedness. As humans, we are social beings. We love community, no matter how, I've worked, as I can say, I've worked in a number of multicultural environments. I've worked in Nigeria, I'm currently working in the UK. And no matter how much we say the cultural variances are still, there's something that is common, is still the social connection, between us as humans. And as corporate professionals, something we would also find is that most of the relationships we have as corporate professionals are workplace centered, outside family, workplace centered. So when we are not having that physical conversation, physical interaction from time to time, there's a gap that starts existing in connectedness. So it makes us feel isolated sometimes, which can affect, create social anxiety, lack of connectedness, lack of, connection even to our jobs, respectively. That is there. There's also the challenge of collaboration. A lot of information are lost in emails. Just being able to walk up to a colleague's, desk to have that conversation informally can resolve a lot of back and forth in emails. That is there. Even when it comes to collaborating on important conversations or tasks or decisions, people get left out subconsciously and things like that. So it affects collaboration in another way there. So people are missing out on opportunities to be part of projects because that physical, and we can hide. I think there was a study by Harvard that shows that one of the major inhibitions to people's promotion post-COVID has been, lack of collaboration. So that is also there. I think something else to also add to it would be technology, definitely. A lot of organizations were not prepared for the technological requirements for hybrid work, from the tools to the devices. We now have to you have to make a call. Before now, in the workplace, you can use your desk phone, but we now have to make calls using our personal phone most of the time, which is extra cost on even us. For organizations, some could afford to provide smartphones, tablets, and laptops, but a lot of organizations could not provide that. Collaboration tools as well with regards to technology, that was a big major challenge as well for even a lot of employees. So it's just, there are so many challenges around there. And I can say the solutions to them are definitely tied to them directly as well. From collaboration, right from even onboarding, is very important for organizations. I always say this, no matter how you want to do it, have physical onboarding or have consistent hybrid onboarding where employees can come in from time to time, especially when they are joining, especially for culture as well. Because if I'm joining a new organization and I'm working all the time from home, or I'm not meeting my colleagues from time to time, I will not feel connected to them. I'll just focus on my task and not, the camaraderie that can exist between myself and my colleagues. That is there. So ensuring, more intentional onboarding built around connection and socialization in the workplace. That can, bridge gaps of connectedness, definitely. In my current organization, just sharing this, we have monthly challenges we run, and these monthly challenges such that for a whole week, and we have random teams, 4 of us in each team, and what we do is we have specified activities. Each activity has a point attached to it. So doing maybe 10 squats this week is
like
2 points. Yeah, 2 points. Calling or random act of kindness, 3 points. So if you do anything, just put it in an Excel sheet. It's a general team collaborative Excel sheet, and we can all see the points that each team has amassed through the week, and we do it every month. So it makes you. We have ensure you have you get a minimum of 30 minutes sometime this week, minimum. So if you get 1 hour, so you are encouraged to go out into the sun, go for a walk, amongst other things like that. You are encouraged to change your workspace once a week. So if you are working from your workstation all week, use your dining table, use your sitting room, just change, just shift away from that space. It might even also just bring about things like creativity. So encouraging activities such as that, involves our personal lives. So not just even focused on the workplace. That is also there. On cases of mental health and well-being, I think one of the important parts is also training managers, senior leaders on how to support employees, how to have these conversations. I remember when I was working with PwC, these were some of the things that we're provided with. Then where if you're having issues with mental health, you were feeling burnout, we had experts, professionals outside the organization that you could speak with. They were, senior leaders, managers were also trained to be able to ask questions, elicit certain conversations. Are you having issues with performance? Do you think you're feeling burnout? Asking right questions. I think these are some of the solutions to some of the challenges as well that people are facing, through hybrid work, and now it is also impacting our work-life integration. So I think these are just some of my few thoughts.
Thank you. I think it's sounding like, obviously you've mentioned burnout again from this hybrid work. And I think it's clearer now, even if we weren't clear before what's causing the burnout. The burnout is from working longer hours, in integrating, which is a good thing. Like, oh, we're happy to, that the work is giving us flexibility, but at the same time, we're doing more work in the sense that even if we're not doing more hours, we are working for longer. So I think for people who say, I can do my work at night, it doesn't matter. There still is an implication of working in the night, So it's something that we have to manage, because I think, I've heard this argument where people say, let people work anytime they want to work. But the truth is that and now this is a human being, we can't work. If you're going to work at night, it's going to affect you in the day. And I think this is probably something a lot of people need to know, that, being always on or working when you want is not necessarily healthy. Because if you're working in the night, you're definitely, one thing I know about the human body, and this happens to me, it's difficult to have like maybe 2-3 effective days in a row. Like sometimes I have to work really maybe long hours and very, would I say, fast hours. But I noticed that the next day, you can't cheat nature. That's just something I've learned. You can't just have those. It's just like sometimes people ask me, Adora, how do you do it? Maybe they see me program 3 days in a row. I'm like, nah, if I do 3 days, I do 3 days off. You don't see me where I'm doing the 3 days off, right? You might see me 2 days, I'm all over the place. But trust me, I have my 2 days immediately after, because you can't be on you can't be working at that pace continuously. So I think that's where the mental health issues are. Maybe some of us are thinking that with the flexibility, we can now be Superman and Superwoman. But what I'm hearing from the conversation is that we actually can't, because we still, so this really, this has other implications, which I think I would really be looking forward to hearing about. So, Ifeoma, you can see that obviously, thank you for, starting that conversation. Do you have any other, do you have any contribution to how, Samuel has mentioned a lot, but how can we effectively manage this work-life integration when working, to avoid, especially, maybe as an employee, to avoid falling out with your employer, because obviously it does have its implications. So what can we do about it? And then, how do you think leaders and HR managers can support this? What's your experience?
Well, I would say, what's important would be alignment. Yeah. So alignment would be critical, and from the get-go, for any organization that decides to run a hybrid model, the design would also be key. So the design of your policies, the design of the structure, that is in place, even KPIs would have to be designed in such a way that, it aligns with this new framework. I'll give you an example. The IT guys in my organization, where we probably say 8 to 5, there's a lot of flexibility in their area, because somebody will tell you, oh, I've worked all night. For such a person, you do not expect that the person, is available during the day, so back to your point on, you can't cheat nature. So it's also understanding the function, it's understanding the needs of the organization and finding a good balance. I also like the fact that Samuel mentioned that what is key is also getting line managers, because at the end of the day, right, HR designs the policy alongside people. And at the end of the day, it's actually the line managers that would help us to monitor and ensure that, people are actually working in line, with these policies. So one area that I would say line managers would need to step up on is empathy. So each employee's case is different. So the organization has decided to run a hybrid model. Yeah, it's not it shouldn't be cast in stone for all. So again, you probably would have, so like a commercial team, take for example, that has, customer service, client-facing people within the team. You probably would want them, it depends, seated in the office. You have analysts who, again, work data with the system. They probably do not need to be in the office 2-4. So again, back to alignment of goals, being able to also plan. Because you can't also have line managers, sending in, reports that need to come in, everything is, how you say, everything is top notch, everything is priority. So we need to get line managers to begin to learn to prioritize as well, bearing in mind that the hybrid model will typically get their people to work round the clock, So, if I need certain information for 12 noon the following day, take for example, it means I probably should have given you notice ahead of time. So planning, alignment, and empathy are 3 critical areas that I feel line managers would need to step up on, and also get their teams to be better aligned, to the goals of the team, and to ensure that the relationship does not break down.
Great, thank you. So I have a question because, because, and I want to know, Samuel, no, I'll ask Samuel this one. It's around, you see, this hybrid work, right? And because I know organizations have policies around hybrid. It's not always on for every organization. I know quite a number of organizations who still have their set times. You work remotely, but they have to do things to make sure that this burnout is not an issue. So, they have set hours. So I'm just trying to understand, how do we, because the solution to this burnout is that we still have to fix hours. Otherwise, there's always going to be burnout if we are working anytime we want. I remember a book I was reading about 2 years ago. And I'm not really sure what the word was again, but it said something about structure. I hope I'm right though, but it said the Jewish word for structure actually means freedom. That structure gives you freedom, that sometimes we think that when we are free to do what we want, that we have the life we want, but a certain level of structure is required to actually give you the freedom that you want. Because without having those planned set hours, like anything can buzz into your day. So, so I'm thinking the only way organizations can really tackle it is that you have to put the structure into the things that people say they don't want structure in. People want flexibility, but if we don't put the structure and the flexibility, then it's going to eventually have a negative impact because people are not, their mental well-being is going to be affected and they can't do that work. So Samuel, what's your own experience about this, how organizations are managing a hybrid despite the flexibility?
Okay, yes, thank you. That question is an interesting one. I think I'll just share a few examples from my past and current experience. So I think one of the key things that needs to be addressed is collaboration. When it comes to collaboration, I understand different people want to work at different times. Okay. And I remember back then when I was in Nigeria, for example, different organizations I worked with, one of the things I saw consistently was we usually agreed on a day to come into the office. So we had a fixed day to say, this is our collaboration day. Either we are working from home or even, in the office. This day, you do not, you just ensure you have a set time for our team. So you have your respective stakeholders you want to engage. You had hours maybe you want to work from 9 to 3 during the day and 4 to 7 in the evening, whatever that is within your control to a larger extent. The focus is on your output, ensuring that your stakeholders also are not escalating issues with you. Those are like the key, prioritizations. However, there are set dates to say on Thursday. So in my current organization, we catch up in the office Thursdays. And some Thursdays, we just catch up and block 2 hours just to have tea and coffee together. We are just having random conversations around vacation, hiking. So it's not any, does not have to also be anything too serious. So around collaboration, I think ensuring there's a stipulated time to ensure connectedness even among team members.
Okay.
I think that's very important. Something to also say, and I think that's something Informa has mentioned outrightly, that while flexi work should be there, it should also be fluid, which is very, very important. One thing to also notice, I also believe is very important, one of the key structures, and I remember very well post-COVID, the projects I got on most were around performance management, because the fear a lot of organizations started having then was, how are we going to manage performance when people are not in the office? So if a core competence for a job is interpersonal skills, and you've always measured it based on their office interactions, you're not seeing them again. How do you rate them based on that competency? So having clear expectations around outputs and not number of hours worked, I think that's also something to prioritize around the structure. And a person can be on their laptop, you can check how active they are from 9 to 5, and they've not done anything. They could be scrolling social media, they could be doing any other thing through that time. So it should not be on number of hours worked, but on their outputs. I think that should also be prioritized. While ensuring people are disciplined and they are, they stick to being connected to work, the focus should be on output. I think that's something I would also say around that. And also on structure, I think collaborative tools should also be provided. That is something I always advocate for, collaborative tools that makes it easy for people to work together, because that's also where the structure comes into place. If we agree we are working on something at the same time, it's not, I know in previous years where you have to work on an Excel document, when you are done with it, or a Word document, you send it to someone else via email, that person makes changes. But now we have, these things can be used real time, where I can see who is working on it. I can make changes to it. We have tools like Notion, Slack that can enable us. So organizations deploying these tools as well will better enable structure with how people work. So those are just some of my thoughts around putting structure in place for hybrid work.
So it's obviously interesting that, hybrid work, even though a big part of it is flexibility, that there's a part, we still need to put the structure for the hybrid to work, optimally. Like sometimes I refer to this example. I remember, like I have quite a number of friends in the UK who work remotely. And I remember visiting a friend, during the daytime, because that was the only time I had to see her. And she didn't leave her desk at all. I met her in her workspace in her house, right? She didn't leave her desk at all for the entire, like I was probably there for an hour. I mean, she was with her work tools and everything, but it was obvious that there is monitoring in the sense that, like the business tools that they had to work those hours. And, once it was literally 5 o'clock and she would log off. And that's it. So we're talking, so they're just different ways that organizations still implement it. And like, I think we've said this before, like, yes, lots of, I hear the school of thoughts who says people should deliver and we should focus on deliverables, which is one thing you just mentioned now, right? But however, isn't that also part of what is affecting people's, in terms of burnout? The fact that they are working whenever they want to work and there is no off. I mean, they don't switch off. They're, they're literally working long hours. So they are not, because, they're not necessarily working 8 hours or anything, but they're just working at the wrong time. I don't know whether I'm making sense. Like, isn't that an issue as well? And then, like the other thing is that, so don't we have to put some, would I say, when we talk about structure, we have to put policies around this. I know some organizations have put policies around emails outside of work hours. Why are they doing that? There's a reason. So somebody wants to work at 12 midnight. There's some people, their work starts in the evening. That's when they want to work. But some people have been working all day and they don't want to work at night. So I know organizations put policies around, emails, when emails can be sent, or, what are core hours. And I believe that organizations do this for a reason. And those are some of the things that I feel like organizations have to look at in order to manage this hybrid or remote type of work-life balance issues or work-life integration. Ify, what are your thoughts there? Samuel has said quite a bit. I love the strategies that, that his team, your team adopts. What are your thoughts around, managing these? Because it's still an issue. How can employers, we talked about, how leaders and HR managers, can support employees in work-life integration. Can you talk to us a bit more about that? How do you think, you talked about empathy from the managers, you talked about different things. What about the HR side? Are there any other ways that HR can support? And maybe you can also chip in on what role you think technology would play here. Because I think Sam has spoken quite a bit about collaboration tools. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay, two things. So again, back to HR and the line managers working closely to make sure that, the hybrid model works. One area HR I know should be looking into is regular surveys, because again, the world is so dynamic these days. One day you deployed a particular model and another day it's changing, right? So yeah, so you must be feeling the pulse of these individuals on a regular basis. Yeah. And then what's even more important is that you're checking to make sure that the tools, the structure you have in place is relevant. It's not one size fits all. Yes, you can have, you can have a structure. However, there has to be an opportunity, for some level of flexibility, right? So HR managers looking at, ways to actually make staff engaged both at work or on site, So you have to make it, and I think that's where really technology should come in. So whether I'm at work, if I'm at home, if I'm, 1,000 miles from home, I must be fully engaged with my team. Yeah. Okay. So, so everything, that HR would need to ordinarily do if the guys were on site, should also be made available, while you're on hybrid. I know I had researched, and found that I know some companies have gone to the extent of creating ERP models that supports, purchases even while, when you're on break. So you take a break, to do your grocery, and these are, already factored into the way the ERP systems have been built, into the office and connected to wallets, right? That can immediately, that can get money off you, while you're on your desk. So you don't really need to get up. The design of the hybrid models is so, it's so delicate, because it's, the question is, okay, how do you make this happen such that work is happening and then these guys are, living their full, as they say, their best life. What I know some organizations have begun to introduce is employee assistance programs, which are also made available. Those are also have been, what's it called now? Made virtual as well, where you have access to, wellness doctors, counselors, once you're off work and even while you're at work. So really being able to feel the pulse of the employees and on an ongoing basis, regular check-in with them, and on an ongoing basis, really, finding out what it is, that they need, and, you strategize, find out if there are things that can be easily deployed or not. So HR will play a very supportive role, but ultimately, if these things are deployed and not also properly used, because guess what? You can create all the engagement interventions, but if there's no time, if the work is so much, that these guys are not able to, enjoy some of these benefits, then it still amounts to nothing. So Jim, yeah, go on.
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying, I'm actually concerned that with the integration, it's not always the work that is causing the problem, right? Because the integration is part of the problem, isn't it? Like if somebody is having issues at home, from the home fronts, because they're at home, the integration, sometimes people are experiencing burnout, not because work is too much, but it's because of the integration, isn't it? Like
back at home.
I am
very true.
I am at the work, I am at home. I have the distractions in front of me, or I'm having some personal issues. So like all of it is getting to me because maybe before work-life integration, I would have just focused on the home side, or I would have just focused on my work side. But now, because it's all together, like, it's just, it's a bit,
it's too much.
Yeah.
And that's why it's also important that, it's finding the balance as well, Adora. Just speaking to that, because guess what? Some people would rather be in the office than at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people would rather be in the office than at home. So, the design has to be such that whether I'm at home or on site, I'm experiencing the same level of engagement, from managers and, to the point where, I've also seen videos where you have people, the virtual meetings that are had, on site. You'd have actual physical representation, from individuals. So, so really it's creating the right balance.
Thank you. Let's look at the questions. I think there's a question here on the Q&A from Peter. And he says, and I'll ask Samuel, he says, is work-life integration not a capitalist approach in counteracting work-life balance, which is more attuned with natural principle of rest? Is it not a way to increase work tenure time, as all the benefits seem to revolve around work effectiveness and productivity? What are your thoughts there, Samuel?
Very, very interesting question. And I think we need to go from a defensive position towards work-life integration to understand even the benefits for us as individuals. Because what work-life balance, and I think Seth was preaching earlier, is finding when you say something as a balance, it's like placing two things on a scale and trying to find the one that, where you can find the middle. So it means you're only prioritizing two things as a human being. But when you go from work-life balance to integration, you are understanding that work is a subset of your life. You have other things that also matter to you. So how to create the synergy between these different aspects in your life. That is like the prioritization of work-life integration. And when you are looking at work-life integration, you are creating productive patterns and routines for yourself. So if I am taking a break of 1 hour during the day, it does not mean the only thing I can do during that time is lunch. It could also be my time to meditate. It will be my time to journal. It will be my time to take a walk. So that is where integration comes into place. So it does not, 9 to 5 does not mean the only break you could take is focused on lunch. That is, so it depends on what you are prioritizing per time. That is there. One thing to also note around work-life integration is also ensuring that you can set boundaries. That is one of the key priorities of work-life integration, where work-life balance says every task that comes to you because it is work hours, you must say yes. It's also the fact that you can say no to certain tasks because you are prioritizing. If you are experiencing burnout, you are also prioritizing the state of your mental health. When we are stressed, I have a science background, so I know how stress works. It releases cortisol into our body. Cortisol is an inhibitor to dopamine, serotonin, the neurotransmitters that make our brain more active and creative. It inhibits it. So we cannot even do productive work when we are stressed. So we need to understand that when you are getting burnout, being able to say no is also, it's not a capitalist approach. At that point, you are understanding that your emotional health is a part of your life. And if your emotional health is not in a good place, you cannot do productive work. So you can say no, you can negotiate work. That is what it also means around there. You can also set boundaries around family time. If you are requested to work over the weekend, you can outrightly say that. And that's what will take me back to what even HR professionals can do in the workplace. I know that EAPs are great, but it's also important that we as HR professionals have conversations and enable a culture of safety for employees, where even when they are having issues at the home front, they can come to the workplace to have that conversation, knowing that there is confidentiality of that information that they are coming to the workplace to share, and they can receive support, even if not support, that emotional support, even not outright support that can help them solve that issue, but that emotional support is there. They know they feel even protected. If they say no to their boss with regards to a task, they know that that protection is there from the organization, where their line manager cannot, retaliate based on them setting boundaries around their life. That is where work-life integration is. So we have parts to play as employees, ensuring we are having productive routines. We are communicating them as well. It's not just enough for us to create it. For me, at work right now, I don't accept any meetings till 10 a.m. at work. I don't, except it's a training that has to do with, the whole organization, and, you can't miss it. But if it is within my control, I do not accept meetings. And I communicated this to my manager, that the first 1 hour of the day, I needed to organize my own work. I'm identify my priorities for that day. I need it for that. So from 10, I work. From 10 to 12, and I'm just sharing this. From 10 to 12, I do meetings, work. From 12 to 1, I don't accept any meeting as well. From 1 to 2 is my personal learning time. I communicate this as well. So I focus on my output, and this is where negotiating comes into place. And my personal learning time here could be organization-based, could be my personal learning time. So these are just some of the things. I listen to podcasts sometimes. I watch TED Talks sometimes in that time. So it is just, and that's because we have clear expectations set. I know what the expectations are for me with regards to my stakeholders, with regards to the business, with regards to my BAUs as well. So there are a whole lot, I must say, with regards to how we balance this out. And I think another thing organizations can also do, and I think a lot of organizations do this, is challenges around things outside your work. But do you have a savings goal? If you hit your savings goal, give them rewards. If you hit your fitness goal, give them reward. This also encourages outside work activities for people. So that is the whole idea of work-life integration, where the focus is not just on work, but looking at you as a whole human being, such that we are looking at the different areas and how we can enable you in the different areas. If you are struggling financially, do you want a finance coach? I've worked in organizations that I think I'll still mention Sterling Bank again. I know an employee then that was struggling financially, and the person was placed with a finance consultant that helped them look at their budget. This is not, it was something I was aware of because I was close to the person involved. I advised them, engage HR. HR would support you. And finance is not work. Most organizations will not have that obligation. But work-life integration is when we realize that when you are struggling financially, it will affect your work out because you'll be thinking about it as well.
Yeah.
So there was a finance consultant that helped them look at their budget. Okay, how much is coming in? What loans do you have? How can you restructure? Do you want to renegotiate with those you are paying loans to? And that was how the person was able to achieve a balance in about 2-3 months to that time. So that person would also even feel appreciated that they received the kind of support they needed. It was not work related. It was not their performance, anything. It was just that person. And that's another retention idea there, where they feel like this organization is prioritizing me. So it is providing an enabling environment, providing enabling systems, tools, policies that ensure that it is not just work that employees are always focused on, but they are also looking at different areas of their life and they are supported as required. So set boundaries. If it is 5 p.m. you want to get off work. There are days I work till 9 p.m. here, but I'll just ensure I schedule my emails past 5 p.m. till the next morning. I'm not sending them to anybody. I'll just schedule it till the next morning because most people will not even reply your email at 5 p.m. And some organizations, if you don't reply emails at 5 p.m., the hiring manager could say you're unserious. But if employees know they are protected when they are not responding to things outside defined work hours, they would be more encouraged to say no and set boundaries that can encourage them to have productive routines and plan their lives the way they want it.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, it's very clear, and I'm thanking you for the examples that you're giving, because it definitely makes a lot of sense. What I'm hearing here is that we really need to, we still need the structure within, we need to create boundaries. Boundaries is structure. We need to schedule times. Time is scheduling is structure. So because you're working hybrid doesn't mean that you still wouldn't have those time slots. In fact, that's probably the only way, or the most effective way of actually managing your mental health, is to still put structure in your time. Otherwise, you're just going to be like, you're going to be mentally burnt out, because if you don't manage yourself well. And I believe that this is probably something that a lot of people who work hybrid need to know, that they still need to put the structure in, because it's the lack of structure that in the hybrid work that actually causes the mental health issues there. So I mean, when we're talking about, I think the other thing is, I mean, this is to all of us who work in this way, is to manage ourselves and our times better, schedule our life in a way that makes sense. And then maybe people should also not take on too much because they are working at home. Because obviously it's an issue. People are taking more than they can chew. They're taking advantage of the fact that I'm at home. And that's why some people are taking extra jobs. I mean, we know of people taking extra jobs, doing side hustles because they're at home. They feel I am freer, right? Right. And then people are taking up more duties at home. Oh, I used to have a house help, maybe. I don't need one anymore because I'm at home, right? So you're now doing all that work. So you're doing your side hustle now freely because you're at home. You no longer hire the help you used to hire. You now do it at home. So you think you're getting benefits, but all the benefits that were given to you, you've basically like traded them off. And so you're working more. So it's like almost being like penny wise and pound foolish. So I think it's something we need to consciously realize, that because you're at home doesn't mean that you have more time. You don't. You still have the same amount of time that you had for work. So if all those things you used to use to help you and support yourself when you were not home, you should keep them, because that's your support system. If you take all of those things away, it's going to lead to, burnout. So I will just, Ifoma here, I mean, do you have any, we've come towards the end, like, do you have anything to add to what Samuel has said, or any takeaway points for, how do you want to wrap this off? Your final thoughts or your final words here. Thank you.
Well, I mean, what I would say as the final thought on it is to think it through. So again, for organizations, I mean, take for example, I work in a manufacturing concern. So, there's only so much, we can do to introduce a hybrid model. However, for organizations that choose to run a hybrid model, your design is so important. You must work, you must design with your employees in mind. It's also important that the line managers who are also going to be helping with instituting are fully on board. So again, you have management stamp on your policy. You also need to have like buy-in meetings, where line managers are, brought on board, to fully understand and grasp, what their own, limitations are. I mean, you had mentioned, you still have line managers who are willing to take in work at 10 p.m., at night. And, despite having a policy that says that, look, you cannot work beyond, or you do not have to, usually most policies are usually quite, conservative. So you find policies that say, your expected work hours 9 to 5, but you still have, instances where there are extensions to the rule. So line managers really need to, get on board. Because where you do not have a full understanding of what is required. So this is now me speaking to, flexibility, where you have, the hybrid option and on-site option. So where you choose to, run this for your teams, you need to have that sit down, and have a full understanding of what their life situation looks like, and try to design something that kind of aligns with that, just so that there are no surprises, and so that, KPIs are met as at when due. Yeah. So once all of this is in place, I mean, you should actually have happier, more productive employees.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
that. Yeah. So Samuel, I'm going to ask you a question. The question here from Ike, and this is just to wrap up as well, is that he's talking about, and this is a very valid one, why I want us to address. It says Elon Musk of Twitter is not a believer in work from home. So how do HR practitioners lead in organizations that don't practice work from home? It says your point of view, Samuel, he said appeared a bit simplistic in an organization that's, like it appeared like a one-way approach. It will be interesting to see how you handle such policies in a technical firm that cannot support work from home policies. So Samuel, that's to you, right? I mean, you're speaking from a firm that practices work from home policies. How would you lead in a Twitter where, or a, not even Twitter, I would say, what's the other firm? What's that electrical car? Tesla, yes.
Tesla.
That's there's nothing like work from home. Over to you, Samuel. What would
Yeah,
you say?
the interesting thing is the owner of Twitter and Tesla are the same person.
Say that
So it's
again.
understandable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Elon Musk owns both companies. And
Yes.
while as an HR professional, you can't have control over every decision within an organization. It's very important for us to be able to make business cases. And over the years, that's where I've seen a lot of HR professionals fail when it comes to implementing change or influencing change in our respective organizations. A lot of HR professionals, I would say this, need to sharpen their business acumen skills and their data skills as well. I can tell you for free, a lot of HR professionals do not even know how their organization makes money. They can't even analyze their balance sheet. So the first thing businesses or business leaders will be interested in is the cost implication of certain decisions. When they can see the cost implication, for example, if we implement, is a tight technology market out there for the talent market. If we know that moving from hybrid or moving from remote work to full on-site can make some employees leave, what will be the cost of replacing them? The time cost, first of all, the time cost of replacing them based on historical data that we've had within the business or even in the market. The time cost, let's say if an employee resigns today, how long will it take us to find a senior engineer in the market? Just, you can use different roles across the business. That is one. The time cost. If a senior engineer leaves the business right now, and we can't fill it for 3 months, what is the business? What is the time cost for us? What is the cost of finding another talent like that senior engineer that has the same competency level in the market? There's a high chance you'll be paying more if you're looking for the same, skill level that you'll be bringing in that can add value. So the time cost, the compensation cost, factor in all the costs, even the cost on the recruiter that you have to engage if you have to use agencies. So bringing cost into the business, how it will also affect retention. Employees will leave, productivity will drop because a lot of people can affect morale in the business. When morale drops, how will it affect business performance? People performance is always directly tied to business performance and morale as well. So it is bringing all this data to the front. That is, we can say, the year that we have INPS with regard to our people 2 years ago, we can see business performance went up 25%. The following year that it dropped, business performance dropped 15%. You can use data like this. First of all, is we even need to be able to know the data to use to have these conversations, know how to present this data as well. That is sincerely what senior managers will always be convinced about. But that is also an attempt, which I believe can get us the results we want. But to be fair, we cannot always have full control over certain decisions in the business.
Of course, yeah. So thank you so much, Samuel. It was a pleasure to learn from you. I mean, you gave some very insightful examples, things I would remember. I can see a lot of feedback here, very positive feedback on your contribution. A big thank you also to Ifeoma, on her contribution, on how HR and, line managers can support employees. I think I'm looking at the feedback and it's very positive. I believe that all of us have learned a thing or two that can help us with whether we're practicing work-life integration. We need to know that. I think the big takeaway for me and a lot of us is that we still need to put structure into this work-life integration. So it's not the, like the pie in the sky, best thing that ever happened. If you don't manage it well, it can also go belly up. So big thank you for that. And I want to say big thank you for everyone who made time to come in. Join us next month for another trendy topic in the HR field. And I just want to say have a good afternoon, everyone. You can go back. This is part of the integration into the work life. So continue working if you have work to do. If you've shut down for the day or you're going to do school runs, good luck to you and whatever you need to do. Thank you very much, Samuel. Thank you very much, Ifoma. And have a great afternoon to everyone else. Take care. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Have you seen the sun? Have you seen the moon? They are shining light for you. And have you seen the stars shining in the dark? 'Cause God is still watching you. Life is beautiful, however you choose. Be grateful for life. Love is beautiful whenever I'm with you. What a time to be alive. In no matter the